To me, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
We
especially
brought
because
in-
the numbers are
yeah.
down so low of
We
people
brought in
who aren't
Google to do a website. We hired 3,000 people, 3,000, to work the phones and the website. It's the volume was that incredibly high. And you have to check the financial information for every person. If you only have 1,200, how many were processed?
There's 1,259 that are older than 3 weeks.
1,200 older than 3 weeks. And how many processed total?
3.2 million.
3.2 million processed. 1,200 over 3 weeks. And then what percent of those have issues that have to be worked out? Or, by the way, out of 3 million, what percent is the fraud going to be?
Governor, we continue to hear from person after person about testing results taking more than a week. It happened to me, for example. And I know you've talked about the difference between the state and city labs and the national labs, but it's still perplexing for a lot of people to hear that, you know, the average turnaround is 2 to 3 days when they're waiting sometimes up to 14 days. I'm wondering if you could elaborate on the discrepancy. Have you seen the average time gotten worse in the past few weeks since we last talked about that? And if there's anything else the state can do to speed up test results?
Here are the facts. The testing, amount of time to get back a test is going up across the country. Period. Why? Because the national laboratories that do nationwide testing, Quest, LabCorp, BioReference, etc., they are getting overwhelmed with all these states who are now going to the national labs. Caveat: why aren't the states developing their own labs in-state? We have 200 labs in-state. They should be doing that rather than just going to the national labs. True, but that's more complicated. In New York, about 70% of the tests are done by national labs. There is no delay in that 70% of labs because we appropriate the tests among those labs depending on their volume. So if one lab is getting slow, we have 200 labs in the queue we can allocate among the 200. About 30% of our tests are done by national labs. That 30% is getting longer. It is, because it's running into the national backlog. Not a New York State backlog, but a national backlog. So 70% of the tests, no issue. 30% of the tests that were going to the national labs, they have slowed down because the national labs have slowed down. And the federal government is working on supply chain issues for the national labs, which is part of it. The states nationally have to do a better job of using their local labs to increase capacity. But that is going on. And Gareth can give you some specific numbers. Here's what's worse. What's worse is it's going to get worse because you're going to come into flu season. And right now, we have basically said to all the labs in this state, work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day doing COVID tests. And they are. Come flu season, that's their busy season. And they're going to start to say, we have to run flu tests also. The flu tests, we fear, we're trying to figure a way around this, but we don't have one right now. The flu tests will eat at the capacity for the COVID tests. That's compounding this fear of a second wave in the fall. But Gareth?
If you look at how testing works in New York, we have about now over 800 testing sites. These are not labs, these are testing sites where if you want to get tested for COVID, you'd go there, sign up for an appointment, and they would swab your nose. And then each of those sites has to then pick a lab where they would send that specimen. So as the governor said, about over 70% of testing, those aren't going to the labs that have what you're seeing longer delays with. For example, we had about 69,000 tests yesterday. More than 50,000 of those did not go to the labs that are seeing long delays. And of those over 50,000, the average delay was about 2.6 days. The median is about 2 days. So yes, while you are getting those reports, and it's obviously any lag is not desirable, the majority of testing is in New York is happening on a much shorter time frame, which most other states right now can't say, and that's because of the work the governor did and to develop this huge network of labs here in the state that are doing that kind of testing.
But Luis, those are your numbers. Let me just make